Okay, yeah, I have been trying to record this video, but I keep getting cut off from the old file, from the camera last, because of limited storage space. So I'm actually recording on a new phone, and yeah. So today I'm actually going to make a video about how to recover from narcissistic abuse. Partially because it's been quite a while since I last made a video, and I have been making videos about how, why, all this, how these narcissists behave, how their flying monkeys behave. But I don't really think that I've been actually addressing how I really recovered. It's been about 6 years after my last, that I don't even know if I can call it a relationship, but it's more like a narcissistic situation. Yeah, with a toxic abuser, and someone was just narcissistic and doesn't know any better. So yeah, so I think it's important because people often end up wondering how to live their lives after that, after they get discarded and drop like a hot potato. So it's a very common thing, and I mean it's not like really that uncommon anymore, especially when nowadays people are becoming more and more narcissistic because of social media and everything. So yeah, so I have about 5 pages of notes and 6 points. I'll try to plow through it, although I can't guarantee that this video won't be long. But yeah, so okay, there are about 6 points. So the first point is radical no contact. So when I say radical no contact, it doesn't just mean cutting off the narcissist. You have to actually stop sending messages or even checking up on the narcissist or expecting them to contact you. So you have to pretend, not really pretend, but just treat them as if they are dead. That's the only thing you can do, because even if you have like a common window, like a mutual friend or mutual acquaintance, and they feed all that information about you or about the narcissist to and fro, either one of you, you're gonna have a lot of difficulty healing and recovering. So as the saying goes, you cannot heal in the environment which hurts you. So yeah, it's actually good as an idea to unsubscribe from media feeds and social media, which actually keeps you connected with the narcissists and their so-called flying monkeys or friends. If you really need to keep that social media, then of course there's the function called restrict or hide. And I believe that Instagram has actually a few functions. One is to hide your story and hide your news feed from someone. They can actually contact you if I'm not wrong, but they can't see you. There's another one where you can restrict them, so their messages will not actually appear in your folder or your profile directly until you actually approve of it. And of course the highest level of security is actually blocking them. So yeah, all three, you can choose from all three, but I would still yes, recommend no contact, as in just treating them as if they are just dead. That's the best way, because you don't want to end up in a situation where it's like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. So it's still a form of regression and you don't recover. Yeah, when it happens. Okay, the second point is actually loving myself more. I know that it sounds really cliche. We hear a lot of that all the time. So people say, you have to love yourselves more. When you were with the narcissist, they didn't love you, they didn't care for you. But there's a reason why we say that, because when we were in the relationship with the narcissist, we spend more time and more effort on others, especially the one who abused you, and more so than on yourself. So the disproportionate time spent on others was exactly why the narcissist actually chose you, because you were a very easy source of supply. So yeah, if anyone was to actually repeat walkers from surviving to thriving complex PTSD, will realize that this is a very common thing with most victims of victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse, that we tend to engage in this thing called the fawning complex, FAWN, fawning. It's actually the people-pleasing complex. Yeah, we try to please other people, even if it includes people who don't really care about us. So the problem is that they don't really care about us. So what more does it like of a difference does it make just by us trying to please them? Because it doesn't make them any better. uh, it makes us more vulnerable. So yeah, and it's actually not selfish to start loving yourself first. As you all remember, those who have actually taken a flight or flown before on an airline, the announcers on the airline will always uh, remind you to put on your oxygen mask first before you actually assist others as part of the emergency strategy. So how can you actually love yourself? How can you love others properly without first loving yourself, right? So yeah, so for me, I actually healed when I was able to actually get into the space where I could have time for myself. So it actually required me to have a day without work. So for me, it's actually Monday. So today, yeah. So I did things that I really valued, and I didn't have any kind of like distractions. I just did things that I like, and sometimes I just didn't do anything, depending on what I actually wanted to do. So the main thing is you do not actually need to rush. Don't rush anything. So don't think of it in terms of, oh, I must do this, I must do that. You've been doing that the whole time when you were with the narcissist. So it's time to really slow down and take care of yourself first instead of trying to take care of others. So the third point is actually to find a counselor or therapist to sort out your weakness, your personal weakness and blind spots, which made you vulnerable to abuse and also to manipulation. So I know that most people are reluctant to find a counselor or therapist because that's the assumption that there's something wrong with you. So, but you shouldn't be thinking that way. Most of the time, I think most counselors and therapists would actually, remind you that according to psychology, we all have our own like dysfunctions and our own weaknesses. So some of us might even have some disorder here and there. So it doesn't make us crazy. We're not like going to be put in a straitjacket or so. But let me just tell you a little bit more about what happened in my case when I went to find a counselor. So before I found a counselor, I think it was in 2017. Yes, it was 2017. 1 year after that, case with I met not mine, but the former narcissist in 2016. There's a few months of basically communication and being with that narcissist, and then it ends up that I was being discarded. But of course, when you know that when you're being discarded, you're not really free per se. Sometimes you get stalked or you get harassed and hoovered by flying monkeys and other people who are actually sympathetic to the narcissist. So it persisted into 2018. So yeah, so 2018, 2019, there are lots of crazy people out there, but even now there are still some people who are on the side of the narcissist. So yeah, but that aside, counselor friend back then in 2017, this is about 1 year after the situation. He had actually tried to actually steer the conversation for once away from complaining about the former narcissist to figuring out why I was actually trying so hard to do everything at work then for a boss who never treated me right. It's a kind of crazy thing, but it happens after being in a narcissistic relationship. You end up replicating some of the toxic or unhealthy behavior that you used to or not unhealthy behavior but unhealthy coping strategies that you used to actually have in the relationship with your work and everything. So I was doing things for a boss who didn't respect me, So my friend asked me, oh, why are you doing that? Because that boss actually even fired me on trump up charges. Yeah, they're not real charges. That's like claiming that there was a complaint from a parent of a student, which she could never show evidence of anyway. And also the claim that I didn't sue that particular enrichment center. That friend told me that about his early counseling experiences. I mean, back in his first few jobs, yeah, I mean elsewhere, before he went to this current center for counseling. He told me that how there was a female colleague of his who asked him, why are you trying so hard to placate everyone? This goes back to what I was talking about, the fawning complex. This friend of mine told me that he was trying very hard to take on everything, pleasing everyone at work, and after doing his own inner work on himself, he actually realized that a lot of it was connected to inner feelings of personal inadequacy and very low self-esteem. So it didn't really help him then, and he, after actually doing that work, he realized that he didn't really need to do that. There wasn't a real need to do that placating of everyone, especially when it's not going to change people how people already think of him. Yeah, so I kind of realized that from what he told me as well, that even if I were to take on more extra work and try to be nicer to people who are really mean to me, it's not going to change how they view me. They already took me for granted. They despise me and show contempt for me. So there's no need to actually keep on trying to be nicer or kinder when it will only make them despise me even more, because they think that the abuse will actually make me treat them better. And then they would just treat me more abusively than ever. So yeah, it didn't really work out. But but that's from that kind of perspective. But so I would say that counselor is really, really helpful for you. Doesn't need to be like a real psychotherapist or a psychiatrist, but counseling really helps. And for my case, I think that especially in 2018, when I was struggling with suicide ideation because of some issues with job and work, and also my own financial situation, the counselors were really, really concerned. So they actually got a friend of mine to call me so that he could check up on me and make sure that I'm not going to do anything that I wasn't going to do anything stupid like or silly, or to hurt myself. So yeah, it's actually good and it's very important. Okay, so the fourth point, I think it's a very important point. How I actually heal after narcissistic abuse. It's actually the use of shadow work. Okay, when I actually talk about shadow work, the moment I actually use this term, some people would just give me a kind of weird look, or some people would think that I'm actually performing witchcraft or sorcery. But in psychological terms, shadow work is not witchcraft. Okay, shadow work actually goes back to Carl Jung's idea of the shadow. Carl Jung being one of the early fathers of psychology, or modern psychology as we know it. And he actually had this idea that the shadow was the the unworthy or unwanted parts of ourselves that we actually repress due to social conditioning. And most of the time we have this feeling that it's not good enough for ourselves and for the rest of the world, whatever. So the shadow is not necessarily a bad thing. So for example, some people have a shadow that includes things like certain habits like using the left hand instead of the right hand, or some people could have the shadow, part of the shadow could be just being artistically or linguistically inclined instead of being mathematically inclined. But it just happens that maybe they have one parent or one guardian or someone who says that it's not good to be artistic, you can't make the money, and you have that kind of stuff. And then we end up repressing and suppressing that particular part of ourselves because we feel some sense of shame or some sense of inadequacy about it. So yeah, that's how the shadow actually comes about. And according to Carl Jung, you can't remove the shadow. The shadow is the vital part of ourselves. We have light and shadow. I mean, this is the part of a human psyche, human being, human sense of self. So the shadow can actually get denser and thicker if you actually deny it. So as even Carl Jung says himself, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct our lives, and we will call it destiny. So we keep on repeating our certain drives, certain subconscious habits and patterns of thought, because we never address them, we never face them. So shadow work is actually it involves things like journaling, mental exercises, things that actually allow you to face yourself, even the parts of yourself you do not actually accept. Asking yourself, why did you reject it, or why was it being repressed, and learning to actually accept it as it is. Of course, I'm not asking you to go out and do something terrible, like let's say you have this thought about going up to someone and slapping a person's face because you don't like them. You used to have that that kind of idea. I'm not asking you to get into trouble. No, I'm not meaning that. What I mean is to accept yourself, all the good and the bad, and learning how to see that sometimes there isn't really much of a so-called bad thing, even about some parts of ourselves that we come to see as bad. Because after all, no one is perfect. Yeah, no one is perfect. No one should be thinking that they have to be perfect. So yeah, shadow work is very helpful. So and actually the benefit of actually this shadow work is actually allow me to start facing the own pain and trauma that I had within after the abuse. By facing the pain and the trauma, I could also find out where the pain was being lodged or located in my body, and then I could just redress the symptoms from there. So for me, I had a lot of terrible physical symptoms. I couldn't really explain it back then what was happening, but these symptoms were just crazy. I mean, they were just crazy. Yeah, there were no real physical or medical reasons per se. It seemed more psychosomatic. So for me, it actually manifested a lot in symptoms like insomnia, psychic nightmares. Yeah, I had this few psychic nightmares. I'm not thinking that they're astral projection or anything like that, but it's almost as if you felt that you are in this situation where you experienced the people who abused you in the past, and the so-called re-experiencing of the abuse. I mean, it vicariously sets you up for certain trauma reactions. I remember waking up once from one nightmare. It was like as if I had been slapped so tight on my face. My jaw was hurting. That kind of feeling, and it's like, damn, I dreamt about that former narcissist, and I was being slapped and cursed and abused verbally, and it was like reliving my own trauma all over again. And and then I had digestive stomach problems with my stomach. So there was also a chronic psychosomatic issue with something stuck in my throat, as if I couldn't voice myself. I mean, the problem is that when I actually went to see the doctor a number of times over these different things, and including my own personal gym injuries and injuries that I had from exercising. Yeah, the doctor would just tell me, he or she would just examine me, and then I remember that one doctor just told me, she looked at me and she just said, "Oh, you're really stressed." Now I mean, I'm able to laugh at it and say, "Oh yeah, why was I stressing myself so much?" But yeah, I mean, the doctor just told me that I was really stressed, and so I think that it's important to do some shadow work to actually face the pain. and the trauma head on. So of course you might not be able to do it every day or every week, and I'm not asking you to do that because it's pretty intense, and all that journaling, all that bring up of why you feel that pain and everything is it can be quite overwhelming for some people, but but you think about it, it's actually going to work in the long run. So psychiatrist, this psychiatrist by the name of Bessel, Bessel, Van der Kolk, Kolk. He's a Dutch psychiatrist or psychologist. Yeah, he actually worked with Vietnam War veterans and many others. He actually has written a book, The Body Keeps the Score. So he talks about how the body actually remembers trauma. So the body actually, instead of actually holding or repressing trauma, actually manifests trauma in certain psychosomatic symptoms. So of course I'm not saying that the cure is chiefly in your mind, because otherwise I'm no different from quack doctors or spiritual healers out there who claim if you just pay a bit of money I can remove bad energy. I don't believe in that. No, I don't. But I think that it's important to actually identify physical causes and also psychological causes of the pain, so that we don't keep on running into them, and then we don't actually keep on reliving our trauma symptoms, our trauma all over again. So shadow work actually involves journaling. So I'm actually not very I don't think there's enough time to really talk about shadow work in this video, so I'll probably make another video about shadow work, how I actually did it on my own end. And part of my own shadow work actually involves a little bit of I think tarot, but I mean if you don't really want to do any kind of tarot for religious or spiritual reasons, I mean it's fine too. But for my case, I'll just let you all know that I don't do it for divination. I don't think it's actually the reason why I do tarot reading, but I actually use it because tarot cards actually have certain like archetypes and certain symbols. So they can be read in a very Jungian psychological sense, in terms of like the dream state and making the unconscious mind conscious. So even this particular not doctor but psychiatrist, he had his own tarot cards. It was like the Tarot of the Hidden Realms or Tarot of the Nine Realms. I'm not sure what the title of the particular deck. But that was one way by which I did the the shadow work. Okay, let's go on to the fifth point. The fifth point is this is actually very important. I think that most people who have experienced abuse from narcissists before will probably join the abuse forums, and it can be domestic abuse, DV, or it can be whatever, or narcissistic abuse. But the main point is not to don't join the blame game on all these forums. So I know that people will always claim say yes, it's the fault of these narcissists, they are terrible people, they are really horrible. Yes, I'm not saying they are not, but if you think about it, all the time you're cursing and swearing and blaming them. Have you ever started redressing your own wounds, your own scars? And I kind of I just asked myself this quite a number of times. I actually went onto all these forums, and every time I went onto these forums, I remember that I was always getting very triggered every time someone who is posting ends up blaming everything on the narcissist, and they just have this victim position or something like that. And I actually have one friend or acquaintance who just tells me stuff like, oh, once you've been a narcissist or psychopath, you'll never heal. It's like death becomes her. You'll be like Goldie Hawn with that hole in your stomach. I was like, no, it's so sad if you can just end up like that, because you're just like almost no different from a zombie. and that's not how you live a life. And I mean, your life should be better than that. So and the problem with these forums is that there's always a lot of anger and animosity. So I remembered once there was this conversation which ended up into in the person calling me a narcissist, like, just because I said you have a choice to leave, you should leave if you can. And she started getting so angry, calling me a narcissist. And I don't know, it's just ridiculous. But it became very, man-hating. And it's, especially for men who have been through narcissistic abuse, being on some of these forums doesn't feel very safe. If you have actually encountered very angry female posters, they will say, it's all the fault of the man, all men are horrible, and if you are like men, I mean, I have virtually never almost seen that many men who dare to post on the forums for fear of being labeled as terrible, or all those different things, or I mean whatever, or even being labeled a narcissist. So there are three stages, as you know. There's the stage of the victim, which is the first stage after you leave the relationship, or you get discarded. And of course there's also the next stage, which is the survivor stage, and followed by the final stage, which is the thriver stage, when you're actually flourishing and thriving in life, and the narcissists and their flying monkeys no longer actually matter to you anymore. So I mean, personally, I think that I'm actually past the surviving stage. I'm past the victim stage. I don't really get angry with the narcissist. I don't even think about them. I don't really care. I don't really care. If I were to see the narcissist right now, and I'll probably just walk the other way. I wouldn't bother. But it didn't really take me. I mean, I couldn't just keep on blaming anyone, because I knew that if I was to keep on blaming others, it's just like that situation of the man who's actually had an arrow in his back, and instead of actually plucking the arrow out, getting himself to his wound to be binded, he keeps on blaming the person who fired the arrow at him. So the blame game doesn't really help. So I don't recommend joining the blame game. So if you can, unsubscribe from the blame game. So I mean, of course, I'm not asking you to stop following all these forums, but read them with a pinch of salt. And finally, okay, this is point number 6. So start learning about your own strengths and weaknesses. I know that it sounds really cliche again, but this is very important, because I think on one particular Facebook group which I had joined for a period of time before I actually left, and I guess I was getting really triggered back then, quite a number of years ago. One particular member or poster of the in the group claimed that he didn't really know what he liked after years with the former narcissist in his life. So it's very funny, because he had asked us, how do I recover from the narcissist? And I mean, all of us were giving, those members were giving our own suggestions. And my suggestion was, you need to actually find out what you really like, your interests, your hobbies. And when you are with the narcissist, you didn't know what you liked, or at least even if you did, you would just do things that the narcissist wants to do. So I mean, for once, like, I mean, I myself, I really like learning Korean and other foreign languages, if you all know. And I'm pretty good in Korean, actually. I'm having traveled there and lived there before. So and my second language was actually French instead of Mandarin. So I really love all this stuff, but with the narcissist around, I couldn't really do that. So I mean, that was one thing. But that particular guy on the on the post had said that I still don't know what I'm actually liking, or what I like and what I want to do. Then, which was kind of it was kind of sad as a response. It felt as if, I mean, at that point in time, it felt as if he didn't want to really just find back himself. But I mean, I can understand now. I mean, compared to back then, because I think that is a very common thing with people who have been in a relationship with narcissists. This narcissist, they will induce this kind of state in you. It's called soul loss. It's called soul loss in spiritual terms. And what do I mean by soul loss? Soul loss is the opposite of ensoulment. Okay, ensoulment is like, let's say, when God breathes, or God or any divine being breathes the divine breath of life into your body, and you end up having the soul, which actually animates and gives life to your physical body. That's called ensoulment. So soul loss is actually the opposite, where your soul, you lose your sense of who you are, your vital soul. So you have that in Chinese culture, where they talk about this. What's it called? They call 六魂七魄. Yeah, it's that whole thing about the 6 and 7 spirits of the body. I can't really translate that from Mandarin, but the idea that your parts there are all these parts which are being broken, maybe, or even lost, because you've been through some form of like trauma or some terrible spiritual experience. So I think that narcissism is a really terrible. I mean, the experience is really terrible, especially the ones who actually suffer from it. But I'm not just for those who suffer from it, but even for those who actually are their victims, especially they experience that soul loss, and it's really terrible because if you are living like your life with a devil in your life, a devil or demon in your life every day or every moment, is like it's like a living hell. So why would you not lose your own sense of self? So I think that the last point, the 6th point, which I was talking about, which was to actually find out about your strengths and weaknesses, is very important. I think it's time to actually assert more of yourself. Myself, ourselves, against these people, and knowing your strengths and weaknesses will actually definitely let you take the first step, or make the first move towards asserting your boundaries even better, more strongly against people who actually desire to break them. So so these are the 6 points, and I think that's it for today. I will actually make another video about stuff like shadow work, how I do them when I'm actually able to. So in the meantime, I hope everyone has a good rest of the day, rest of the night. It's actually turning late. It's like almost 7:30 right now. So 7:21. I actually should go and run some errands, like go to the library as well to return some books. The library is probably closed by now, around 7. But I'll just do the book drop. There's 2 books which I don't exactly. I haven't read one of them, but I read the other. So